term that means rage, especially the rage of Manitou. Manitou is a spirit, a spiritual power that the coastal Indians had as part of their spiritual beliefs. And it's like, in Christian terms, it would be the wrath of God. So by identifying himself as Tisquantum, he's identifying himself as the wrath of God. So Tisquantum becomes part of the pilgrim's world, if you will, just to get away from Massasoit, who would probably have killed him. And he helped them prepare for the next winter. Then when Massasoit shows up with his some 90 men, most of them with weapons, the Pilgrim militia responded by marching around and firing their guns in the air in a manner intended to convey menace. And then both sides, gratified, sat down, ate a lot of food, and complained about another tribe called the Narragansett. So it's very interesting how this myth came to be. But it certainly is something that's problematic for Native Americans. Some celebrate it, others do not. Many tribes made it a national day of mourning in 1970, and every year they return to Plymouth and each Thanksgiving to protest the holiday as it's given. So other Native Americans do celebrate it, but they celebrate it from a Native perspective rather than a Eurocentric perspective. The idea that, it's a story of survival. That as Native Americans, you manage to survive, and you can celebrate that strength. For other Native Americans, it sort of commemorates the beginning of the end of a culture, and that's why some look at it as a form of as a day of mourning. It has now become common that November has become Native American Heritage Month. So it's the one time of the year when Native Americans are seen. So there's something about that is important. So some natives, peoples, take advantage of that to at least inform people, educate them, and be seen. So there's some voices here from Native American writers. Sherman Alexie, very famous Native American poet. He sees it as that story of survival. That we are still here despite everything, kind of thing. And Jacqueline Keeler Another writer talks about the hidden heart of the pilgrims. The story of that heart is the real tale that needs to be told. What did it hold? Bigotry, hatred, greed, self-righteousness. We've seen the evil that is caused in the 350 years since: genocide, environmental devastation, poverty, world wars, racism. Where is the hero who will destroy the heart of evil? I believe it must be each of us. Indeed, when I give thanks this Thursday, and I cook my native food, I will be thinking of this hidden heart, and how my ancestors survived the evil it caused. Because if we can survive with our ability to share and to give intact, then the evil and the goodwill that met that day in the land of the Wampanoag will have come full circle, and the healing can begin. Here's another voice from Simone Moya Smith. Native American Heritage Day falls on the one day each year when the Americans ravenously indulge in material possessions, Black Friday. So is this an insult to Native Americans? Of course it is. How could it not be? If Native American Heritage Day fell on November 5, for example, then students would be in the classroom and teachers could offer lessons about Native American today. But no, instead streams of bundled up shoppers are standing in line to make their purchases, with the class the last thing on any kid's mind as they sit watching TV. If we're going to choose a day for Native American Heritage Day when school is out, how about Thanksgiving Day itself? Why not? That way we could learn about the real history of the holiday. Well, there's many of us who teach that before Thanksgiving anyway. And another point, as I mentioned at the beginning of our show, is that many indigenous people don't recognize it because they have their own Thanksgiving ceremonies that they give thanks year round. The Oneida tribes, for instance, have 13 ongoing ceremonies of Thanksgiving throughout the year. This is from Bobby Webster of the Oneida Nation. And Thundercloud of the Ho-Chunk Nation says that her people also give thanks on a continual basis. Accordingly, marking one day of the year to do so is a clash with the Ho-Chunk tradition, where a very spiritual people who are always giving thanks. She explains the concept of setting aside one day for giving thanks doesn't fit. We think of every day as Thanksgiving. Rather than singling out the fourth Thursday of November as a day to give thanks, Thundercloud and her family have incorporated it into the other holidays observed by Ho-Chunk. The journal reports they extend Thanksgiving observance until Friday, when they celebrate Ho-Chunk Day, a large gathering for their community. So, those are some different thoughts about the holiday. From a metaphysical perspective or a spiritual perspective, which is what we talk about on this show frequently, obviously one of the most powerful spiritual ideas is the idea of gratitude. A gratitude that extends beyond just food and even just family and friends and material possessions, but a gratitude for life, for all that is. And part of that attitude of gratitude, if you will, is that understanding that I talked about at the beginning of the show of how we are able to create it all. We are creating it all. And for that you can give thanks. For that you can be grateful to the power or the energy that you are a conduit for. That we all are conduits for. So for me, I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. But since it's hard to get away from, because it's a national holiday, so everything sort of stops, it is a day of thoughtfulness for me. It is a day of remembrance for me. It's a day of reflection for me. I do have many memories of being a child, and we did have some large Thanksgiving celebrations as a family, and I'm grateful for those too. Um, but at this time in my life, where I'm at in my life, Thanksgiving has less meaning for me. In fact, very little meaning for me. And if you are giving thanks, or you're grateful and thankful throughout the year, then, you know, having this one day set aside is probably not all that important, but perhaps others need it to remind themselves. So, that's Thanksgiving, as controversial as it is. If you are celebrating it for yourself this year, well, think of some of those things that we've talked about here, some of those ideas of the Native Americans, and give a thought to their history and the things that they went through, and raise a glass to their survival, because they did. They survived. As Mr. Alexi points out, I think that is truly remarkable idea. But if you are celebrating Thanksgiving and you're putting together a Thanksgiving feast, here's a couple of wellness tips for you to kind of make sure that you don't overindulge too much and harm your health and the health of your visitors, if you are having company coming, or if you are going out and being a visitor yourself. Here's some tips and some things that you can stay away from, and things you can do to keep healthy. So number one, if you're making food, don't oversalt your foods. Excessive sodium can cause high blood pressure and heart disease. So you don't want to do that to yourself or your family or your friends that you're feeding. So taste the food before you add the salt. And if you need it, do so sparingly. When I cook, I use just a little bit of salt. And then if others want to add more, they can. You have salt on the table. So that way, they have a choice. So let's see. Be sort of stingy with less healthy foods like the dinner rolls and stuffing and all of those carb-intensive dishes that will send your triglycerides sky high. So have more filling protein like turkey, or the fiber-supplying vegetable sides. I remember when my mom used to cook Thanksgiving dinner, she had 3-4 vegetables out on the table. She really went out all out on the vegetables, because she understood that they were necessary for health. So yes, make vegetables the main attraction, and that's what my mom did. I mean, we certainly had the turkey, but that was usually all we had if we were having turkey. Some Thanksgivings we didn't have turkey at all. Some Thanksgivings we had like a pork roast or something like that. But I've seen some Thanksgiving tables where people have turkey and a ham and chicken and the whole turducken thing that is this nightmare of, as far as I'm concerned, really rather terrifying gluttony. So if you can cut down on the animal protein, you can cut down on the possibility of raising your levels of homocysteine, which is an amino acid that can cause heart disease. So, yeah.